This is the United States Energy Association Power Sector Podcast. I'm Herman K. Trabish. I've covered the power sector since 2006, and I currently report for Utility Dive. In this episode of the podcast series on power sector leaders, we're going to talk with Regina Davis, Senior Director of Administration and Communications for the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, or NARUC. Regina is going to describe what NARUC is, how and why utilities are regulated, and how NARUC helps regulators do their job. Regina's led NARUC communications for over a decade. She also edits NARUC's newsletter and hosts its podcast. Before joining NARUC, Regina served as the Maryland Public Service Commission's communications director. And before that, she was deputy director of communications for CSG Justice Center and the University of Maryland Dental School's communications director. So, Regina, what are regulated utilities? Why do they need to be regulated at state level by the commissioners? The recent utility dive op-ed called the Supreme Court Justices of Energy. When and why was NARUC formed, and what role does it serve in utility regulation?
Well, Herman, first, thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk about NARUC and how we serve our members, and of course, how we serve this country. And I'll say that NARUC is a trade association that is not like your typical trade association. We have a very long history, and we've been around since 1889,
Wow.
starting out as a railroad commission. So our members, of course, are those state public service commissioners who regulate utilities that we all rely on: energy, telecommunications, all forms of power, water. Some regulate transportation. Of course, these are necessary services for all of us, and because of that, you need some regulation. Our members are responsible for ensuring that these services are safe, affordable, that is, they are delivered at reasonable rates, and that they are reliable. So, part of that, the reasonable rates, people know that they convene rate cases to make sure that the services are affordable. So, that's one thing that our members are noted for.
I've heard people say that re- excuse me, regulation is a sort of a way to impose something like market forces in areas where utilities operate with their own jurisdictions or territories. And that was created so that the electric industry could deliver services everywhere, not just to where people could afford it. But that regulation keeps those utilities that have an isolated territory um, more under something like market forces. Uh, is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but you mentioned that regulators are like the Supreme Court. So they have to go through evidentiary hearings. It's not arbitrary. We our members involve not only those industries, the utilities, but there are representatives for the consumers, just to make sure that you have a balanced record, that you have a balanced case. They also rely on direct commentary and input from the different communities that are served. So I would say that yes, they operate like a court system. It's a very long process. I would say that the typical rate case can go for up to 7 months or longer. So it's a very complicated process. In fact, this week NARUC is convening its rate school. We have two rate schools, one in the spring and one in the fall, and I'm sure they are discussing that very topic that you just raised. What does it mean to have a rate case? Why is regulation necessary? There are different opinions on that, and I would say that each jurisdiction, each state is different, and there's not necessarily one size that fits all. I mean, each rate case is unique, and each state is very unique in how it carries out those proceedings and how they regulate and what they regulate.
Yeah, that's one of the quirks of our system, of our whole electric power industry, is that it's state by state with a lot of differences. I just want to mention before I ask you the next question, Regina, I want to build on something you said. The cases brought before utility commissioners are adjudicated, and I've literally had commissioners tell me that the winner of a debate is the one that presents the commissioners with the best evidence. So it's really very much evidentiary, which is what you said. I want to move on to another question, though, Regina. That utility dive op-ed that I mentioned, it suggested that the 3,500 professionals that were recently liberated by the Trump Department of Energy could find new careers supporting the state commissions that oversee more than $200 billion every year in utility investments. How will rates be applied to cover what investments? Can you give me some examples of how NARUC has in the past helped strengthen and support those commissions' work?
Oh, sure, because we have an entire program focused on supporting workforce. I would say that one of the most recent and successful programs from our Center for Partnerships and Innovation was called A Day in the Life video series. It was a whole campaign in which we wanted to promote what it's like to work for a public utility commission. We went into various commissions across the country and got video clips of what it's like day to day. What do they do? Because a lot of folks don't understand really that there are a lot of rewarding careers at public service commissions. You know, the average tenure of a state commissioner is about 3.5 to 4 years. So we know that commissioners come and go, but the foundation, the bedrock of commissions, the work that gets done is done by staff who are state workers who have very long careers, often 10, 20, 30 years or more. So we have presented all of the different benefits and the value of public service, and what it's like to work for a utility commission. We have also put together workforce development toolboxes. We have recruitment templates, social media engagement materials for the commissions, because we know that it's very important for them to try to attract folks to come work at the commissions. Also, very specifically, we have targeted the need for cybersecurity professionals. So we have a guide for public utility commissions. It's called Recruiting and Retaining a Cybersecurity Workforce, and that's on our website, and people can learn more about that. But it has sample cybersecurity job descriptions, different skill sets. After you have done your recruitment, then how do you retain and how do you grow that cybersecurity expertise? So it's really across the board that we are really trying to do what we can to help our member commissions attract talented people with the right skill sets, the right experience, who are knowledgeable, and even those who may not be quite as knowledgeable but want to develop that skill set. We are here to help them do that because, after all, as I said, we have rate schools. So someone who may not have all the experience, we help support their staff.
Okay, in those videos, did you come across people at commissions with their hair on fire? Because I know there's a lot of issues. No, I'm sure you didn't. But I do want to bring up, you mentioned in passing workshops. From my understanding, the staff sets up these workshops to help educate commissioners on this enormously wide variety of issues that come before them, from cybersecurity to renewable energy to pipelines. And so the staff is the that's who finds and brings in experts in a non-litigated context to help educate commissioners, to help acquaint commissioners with stakeholders. These are very, very important and little known aspects of what a commission does. And NARUC's work in helping, find that workforce is critical to that task. Am I right about that?
Oh, you are absolutely right about that, Herman, because it's in the states where we find that our commissioners, state commissions, have to be very, very nimble. They have to understand all those issues that are before them. Policy happens um, in the states. And
Right.
that's one thing that we want to bring out, that what happens in the states really matter and affect what happens in the country as a whole. And these folks are leaders, and we help them become leaders. We help to train them. We help to educate them. As you said, we have lots of workshops. We provide site visits for our members, for their staff. We have lots of working groups, electric vehicle working groups, transmission working groups, PBRs. We have, of course, the workforce development peer advisory groups, and these folks meet regularly to talk about these issues. So there's practically not a topic that we are not covering, whether it's a telecommunications based topic, whether it deals with water. We also have a series of new webinars that are coming online because we are really promoting our professional development program.
Well, that's good.
That's really ramping up, and I encourage folks to go to the website to visit our events calendar because we're adding more and more activities all the time. And most of these activities are not just for our members. I will point that out, that we want to serve primarily our members, but also the broader regulatory community. And I think that that's one of the benefits of NARUC is that we provide education for our members, but for non-members alike. Of course, we do have certain activities that are just for state commissioners and their staff, but so much more that are available for non-members as well.
Want to ask you about something that NARUC is recently started working on. I saw on your website that you're trying to bring together right now regulators and industry stakeholders from the natural gas and the electric industries, two industries that may not necessarily have a lot of crossing paths. Why is this needed? Why is NARUC trying to work on this? What is it trying to accomplish, and what's the timeline that it's working on for sort of connecting these two industries?
So you're talking about GEAR, our gas electric alignment for reliability. And alignment is the key word right there because I'm going to give you some background. So right now, today, natural gas meets more than a third of uh, United States energy needs. So that means that with that type of demand, we need additional natural gas pipeline infrastructure to reliably meet that growing and changing demand for energy. I'll give you a few numbers. Nearly 190 million Americans and more than 5 million businesses do rely on natural gas for their residential heating and electricity. In the last year, and we can see how this is growing, natural gas utilities added more than 600,000 new residential and more than 20,000 new business natural gas customers. So we see that we have that demand. So the GEAR working group is bringing together not only state regulators but industry representatives to try to develop some solutions to create an alignment, a better alignment with the gas and electric industries to maintain and also improve reliability. Remember, that's one of the areas that regulators are responsible for is reliability. So they're trying to improve that reliability of both the gas and the electric energy systems um, that our nation depends on for power. And so GEAR was established under our former president, Julie Fordorchak, who is now, of course, Congresswoman. And last year, the charter for GEAR as a task force working group was extended for another year because they were doing so much great work.
Mm.
And so overall, GEAR provides an important venue for regulators and industries to have that discussion and try to develop some solutions. The timeline, of course, is this year. So
Well, that's what was
2025.
extended.
Yeah. So 2025 this year, uh, you'll see some recommendations. Some recommendations have been published on our website, and there should be a final report that will come out. So we're very excited about GEAR and having the ability to create this venue for regulators and industry stakeholders.
Yeah,
Thanks for
that's
asking
why I
about
wanted to
that.
highlight it. Yeah, that's why I wanted to highlight it because one of the key things that's happening in the power sector is this demand growth, and it's going to take we've built a lot of clean energy, wind, solar, batteries, and we've added those to the system. But natural gas is also a resource that people are interested in, and it's really useful to have a task force that's led by a national group like NARUC to oversee how it can best be integrated and aligned, like you say. I want to ask Regina before we finish up. I want to ask one more question. I want to ask about one more effort that NARUC has recently taken on. NARUC and a National Consumer Advocates Group recently sent a letter to Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert Kennedy Jr., urging him to better address something called the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. The acronym is LIHEAP. What is LIHEAP and why is it important to NARUC and to utility regulators?
Well, like you just spelled out, it is a low income assistance program targeting energy. There's a parallel program for water as well. So it is a very critical life saving program that targets and helps vulnerable households to pay their utility bills. And we know that LIHEAP recipients include seniors, individuals with disabilities, families with young children. So we work with NASUCA, that's the National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates. They joined us in putting together this letter just to make sure that it's clear that LIHEAP is very critical and that the support is needed. And we want to make sure that utility consumers like these vulnerable populations do not fall through the cracks. And um, we want to make sure that there is sufficient funding and resources available to meet the needs of these very vulnerable consumers.
Right, with a larger scale work that we see right now as we record this podcast to reduce costs in the government. It's easy to forget that there's really tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of people for whom the cost of bringing electricity into their homes is a real burden. And this LIHEAP program has been significant in helping control that. But you made that clear in what you said. I just wanted to re-emphasize it, Regina. We're out of time. I want to thank you. My guest has been NARUC Senior Director of Administration and Communications, Regina Davis, and she's done a wonderful job of describing how NARUC, National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, continues to help utility regulators shape policy and practices to meet the dynamic and transitioning demands of the power sector. I also want to thank our listeners for taking the time to check out the USEA Power Sector Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with everybody you know our quest for energy transition solutions.